If people today, I want to talk to you or share with you something I think that is very important as we are to see ourselves moving forward as a community. And I picked this particular surah, chapter, because in this chapter, surah of the Qur'an, Allah Most High takes an oath by the fig of the team. Now, as I go into this particular khutbah, I want to share with you first how we have to look at when we study the Quran. And during this past Ramadan, Allah bless us to give a number of workshops on the Quran throughout the city. And we just returned from Atlanta, where we have an annual Quranic workshop down there. People are very receptive. But as I explained in the class, by the workshop, that the classical treatment of the Quran has been to tell what we call the aspect of the what were the conditions or the reasons why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed a certain surah? What was the occasion? I said, and that is very important because you need to know the circumstances that were that precipitated this revelation. I said, but that's the first level. The next level, if you are a serious student of the Quran, you want to look at, well, these particular things that are mentioned in the Quran are also seen in nature. And to appreciate them in the Quran, well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you got to go back and look at the natural environment that these particular things are in. If you read, because there's a message in the particular item or object that is being used by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He takes an oath by it, he says, what team? So you should go and study what is the team. Or you should study about figs and how they grow and develop and what's their unique characters, what makes them a fig. And then it says what teeny was it, and what's the olive, the zaytun. Right? What is the nature of the zaytun? So when we look at the term team, and it's translated out as being the fig. All right. Now, in modern language, people who are thinkers in religious life know that the fig, when you look at it, it has many seeds in it. All right. And those seeds and the fig growth goes up. It's a quick growing plant. It's like it's a burst. Almost a burst on the scene. Like one day you go look at the fig, it don't have nothing on it. The next morning, it got all these figs on it. And we pointed out how these ideas are seen in the Quran. If we go to the surah that comes after that, it says, God said, Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. خلق الإنسان من علق اقرأ وربك أكرم الذي علم بالقلم علم الإنسان ما لم يحلم. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells the Prophet that he is to read. Read what? There's no book there. He is to read the material scheme. He is to read the creation. Now, I say again, now we're very much aware of the classical tafsirs, and we do the workshops on it. That's not. We're not debating that, but we are comfortable with what Ibn Taymiyyah says, what the different sheikhs of Islam have said in the history. But we also know that the human family has grown and evolved. And if our understanding of the Quran is locked in 14th century, 6th century AD, 7th century AD, we're in trouble. And we are in trouble as Muslims. Because it had never been said by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Prophet that there was thinkers who were supermen whose thinking will fix this Islamic thought for all times. And for us to ascribe that all of the fiqh, the reasoning, and the usul al-din, the very foundation of Islamic thought, have been already finished. All we do now is just quote them. We in trouble because the human life is moving forward. All right, and therefore, so we have to look again. I said, and giving all due respect to our great thinkers, but also know that in our youth, in us, those who are exposed to this Quranic thinking can, inshallah, God willing, produce new insights, new concepts, right, that would take humanity further down the road that God intends for it. So we think about this team, we're thinking about that burst of life. Sometimes we see, in our language, we call it the teenager. He got a lot of ideas of what he want to be. As the average teenager, he want to be 3 or 4 things before he be anything. He want to be a doctor, lawyer, engineer, and he goes on. He can tell you, he got all these ideas. So we think about the team. We think about that. We think about how it is physically. Think about it physically. We are reasoning, using what we call in the Quran, in the Quranic sciences. We're using tafsir Quran, visual Quran. We're going to explain something in the Quran by the Quran. Allah talks about it in the Quran. He describes, for example, the garden, the Jannah, as being the garden under which rivers flow. But now those who are students of the language know that the word for river, anhar, is the same word for the word day. Anhar, the same exact word. So in the daytime, man sees possibilities of what he thought about in the layla, in the night. Right? In the night, he just had imagination. And it is the power of the mind to imagine things that give us all the material things we have in. Somebody imagine these things first. So your imagination comes before the more critical thinking of the Zaytun. If you don't see that, I mean, that's clear. Look at the fig itself. It has all these ideas. All right? The fig has all these ideas. And that's how we are when the mind is fresh. The mind bursts forth overnight. Boom. All right? We have a burst of the creative urges. But teeny was Zaytun. But now the man who not only has that burst of his creative urges, has the disciplines of the Zaytun. The Zaytun is an olive. And I was studying that, we have some olives in the Middle Eastern, Mediterranean area that has been alive for over 5,000 years. They have carbon dated some olive trees that are over 5,000 years old. And they were there at the time of Ibrahim alayhi salam. So the olive is seen and Allah talks about this in Surah Nur. He says there is a tree, a blessed tree, the olive tree, who is neither eastern nor western. All right? And it says, Nur, ala Nur. From it comes an oil that has light upon the light. All right? So when you think about that, let's go back and tie this in now. When the human mind bursts with enlightenment, and we see it in Surah Al-Qadr, it says, Inna anzalnahu fi laylatul qadr. Now, there's a whole lot of discussion on this in the books of tafsir, but something that's overlooked is very, very obvious. Layla is the feminine noun. Qadr is the masculine noun. Normally, when you connect, like we say, Laylatul Mubarak, the night, a blessed night, it is Laylatul Mubarak. Remember, right? So both of them are in agreement. But in the Qadr, in the Laylatul Qadr, you have the feminine followed by the masculine. Now you have the creative processes that goes to produce what? Life. Right? I mean, it's obvious. It's not, I'm going to tell you something that you got to, oh, this is deep. heavy. No, what is clearly in front of us is that the Quran is showing you that you will have that verse. You will find your destiny. You will find your purpose when you bring together these two principles of the masculine and the feminine, or the feminine and the masculine. They come together, it gives birth to life. And the Zaytun is that like Nur, light upon the light. All right? If you think about it, those of you, if you want to just test this, something that you have chosen, you should do this. Ask your parents to buy a bottle of olive oil. Just a regular bottle of olive oil. And just observe. Olive oil looks like it got light in it. The oil itself looks like it has light in it. Now, when you shine light on it, the light inside of it reflects more light. Nur ala nur. So we know that the Quran is called a nur. When the human being begins to put his mind on it, it gives him nur, light upon the light. If you have read the Quran for the last almost 30 days, 28, 29 days, and you have come away with nothing, you have not been applying this simple rule. You're reading a book of enlightenment, and it is transforming you into a person of enlightenment. Nur ala nur. Watini was Zaytun. Now, if we educate our young people that look, you have the same imaginative powers as the one who designed the video games, who designed the iPad, who designed anything, then they're going to eventually become designers of a world themselves. They're going to conceive of a world, and then in time, inshallah, by them learning the disciplines of the mind that is based in the principle of our religion called Tawheed, they see that it is a connectedness. Not only can you imagine things, but by using the laws that exist in the material scheme, you can develop anything you want as long as it doesn't violate the rules of reality that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives. Nur ala nur. Watini was Zaytun. Right? And then when they have that sensitivity, because many of us, our imaginative powers have been quelled, crushed, aborted. We have no perspective of what's coming. We don't think about, we're not people looking at, okay, Islam has come to America. What does the Islamic community look like 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 years from now? This is the manifestation of Islamic light. I doubt it. We know, brothers and Muslims, we know for a fact that there are people who have the imaginative powers of the team, who are looking at the potentialities of Islam and saying, in 10 years, this should be happening. In 20 years, in 30 years, all right? We're saying that we are going to be those ones, by Allah's grace, who will build the institutions that we may not ourselves ever step foot in. But we can put the ideas in the minds of our young people, and they will take the Islamic thought to a whole nother level. They will move forward in the land. They won't be comfortable coming to Islam Jumu'ah thinking that having a storefront or a warehouse or a house and that we have arrived as a Muslim. No. They say, no, Islam offers me more than that. I can see the potentials of Islam bigger than the reality that we exist in the places of worship now. I can see Islamic life in a community. All right? I can see the garden under which rivers flow, where the consciousness of the people is constantly feeding from the material reality and getting more creative urges as how to build life the way that Allah wants. Because the garden requires maintenance. When you think about it, if the Jannah is garden, right, if the translated as garden, and there are three levels, the Jannatul Naeem, Jannatul Firdaus, and what else, I can't think of off the top of my head right now, but there are three different levels. And if you don't see that, you got to maintain the garden, otherwise weeds will go up in it. The plants will die off. So if you don't cultivate the garden of your own soul, you have a mind that is a product of just neglect. And too many of us have allowed the garden of our own souls to become neglected because we have lost the power of imagination. We don't look at, say, well, I can imagine one day when the Muslim community will have control over this area of the city. I can imagine one day when the Muslim community will have facilities that will be reflective of the great message of Islam. I can imagine a day when Muslims will have areas where there's businesses all along there, and there's different businesses where and underneath rivers are flowing, rivers of commerce, rivers of knowledge and wisdom. All right, we are losing that, folks. Muslims. We come to Islam, and many of us die. We die in our imagination. We don't imagine anything for our Islamic life other than, coming out of the Jumu'ah. But I implore you to think, to use the creative urges of the team in you. All those little seeds and ideas that you have, everyone can do something to advance the cause of Islam beyond what it is. All right? And all of us. If we would just let our creative urges come back on, where do we see Islam take in the area that you are involved in? All right, all of us work in society. How will you work in that particular position if it was the Muslim is a part of a greater Muslim development? What would be your contribution?